Okay, so hello everyone. I'm going to go through another AS paper today. I'm specifically going to be looking at a micro paper. So paper 1, Introduction to Markets and Market Failure, and 2020, section A. It's going to be, let's see what it says, 25 minutes, but hopefully it won't take all of that time. And I'm going to run through all the reasoning for how I answer the questions. And yeah, hopefully this will end up being very useful to you. And if you've got any questions, just pop them in the comments below and I will endeavor to get back to you. So let's get cracking. So first question, define the term free market economy. Okay, so a free market economy is one where the allocation and prices of goods and services are set by the forces of demand and supply. Now, we can also mention that this would be an economy where you wouldn't have any government intervention. If you were talking about that type of economy, you would have a command economy where the government takes control of allocating all the resources, or you can have a combination of both where you have a mixed economy. Okay, which one of the following is the best example of the rationing function of the price mechanism? So rationing function is trying to ration, make sure that you can distribute appropriately some kind of scarce resource potentially. So, you hear about rationing in the kind of Second World War for bread, butter, those kinds of essential goods. So which one of the following is the best example of rationing function of the price mechanism? An increase in demand leading to a rise in price will encourage new firms to enter the market. Note that is not correct. Instead, actually, that is known as the incentive function of the price mechanism. They're being incentivized to join a market. Incentive function. Changes of price provide information to both producers and consumers. Again, this is not the rationing function, but instead this is the signaling function. Provide information is the key term there. Signaling function. If a product is scarce, a rise in price is likely to make the shortage worse. Well, no, actually that's wrong, because a rise in price will make the shortage less worse because fewer people will be able to afford to buy the good. And so by eliminating the other options, we know the answer is D. And let's just double check. When there's a shortage of a product, the price will rise and discourage some consumers from buying the product. That is the rationing function. Okay, moving on. Explain one advantage of a free market economy compared to a command economy. Okay, one advantage would be improvement in efficiency of firms. Okay, so the reason for that is because you've got a free market, firms, there's no state intervention. In order to gain the biggest amount of market share, firms will want to compete with each other. They'll need to invest into their factors of production in order to become as efficient as possible. So maybe that to drive out competitors, they can charge the lowest prices, for example. So one advantage would be improving the efficiency of firms. So free market economies encourage competition, which incentivizes investment. function, e.g., say capital. And as a side note, it'll improve quality / price of goods produced. Potentially. We don't know, always knows that that is the case, but the efficiency should be the case if we take that, if you had a command economy where there is no competition because everything is state run, then there's no incentive for those firms to be as efficient as possible because they know that regardless, they're going to be, the employees are going to be paid by the government. Okay, the income elasticity of demand for bus travel is estimated to be -1.5. Okay, so YED is an interesting thing. I typically explain it to myself using a scale. So we've got 0 to 1, and then anything to, let's say, minus an infinity. Anything below 0 is basically an inferior good, meaning that when your income falls, you're going to start buying it. Between 0 and 1 is a necessity. These are goods that you buy, regardless of your income all the time, like, I don't know, bread, milk, whatever that might be. And then anything greater than 1 up into infinity is considered a luxury. So these are things that when your income rises, you might buy proportionally more of. So maybe sports cars or Rolexes or whatever you think is considered to be a luxury. Okay, so the income YD of bus travel is estimated to be -1.5, which makes it an inferior good. This implies that a 10% increase in fares will lead to a 15% decrease in passengers. Well, we know, but that is referring to PED, not YED. As unemployment falls, that means that income's going to be rising. More people will use buses. No, we know that's wrong because as unemployment falls, less people will be using buses. Bus travel has a negative cross elasticity of demand compared to rail travel. Oh, I mean, we don't know that. We can't say that. And bus travel is an inferior good. Yes, we do know that. Because as I mentioned, it falls onto that part of the scale where you have inferior goods. Explain why a firm might try to reduce the price elasticity for its products. The whole idea behind this question is basically, again, if I explain to you using this kind of scale, where you've got infinity on both ends. Okay, anything between -1 and 1 would be considered inelastic. And anything beyond 1 and below -1 is considered elastic. Basically, the more price inelastic a product is, it means that the less responsive demand is to a change in price. So things that are very price inelastic are things, for example, which are very addictive in nature. So these might be products like gambling, alcohol, maybe drugs in some sense, will have a very price inelastic demand for them. So one reason if to reduce PET is to make their product more price inelastic. Okay, so let's say that the PED of a good is 0.5, and a firm increases its prices by 10%, and there only be a drop in demand of 5%. So actually, you can see that, yeah, prices have changed by 10%, but the quantity demanded will only fall by 5%. So this, just scroll up a bit, this will lead to an increase in revenue for firm and potentially profit. Excellent. Okay, moving on. The energy company obligation is the government's term for its program to make houses in the UK more energy efficient. In the diagram below, the government grants subsidies to energy suppliers to install loft insulation. This shifts market supply curve for loft insulation from supply 1 to supply 2. Okay, so a subsidy is just something used by the government to try to encourage the production of a particular, whatever it might be. In this case, it's loft insulation, perhaps to improve, as it says, to improve energy efficiency. And the question says the total amount of the spent by the government on subsidies is represented by the area. Okay, so let's take a look at the options. A, O, P1, so 0 to P1, J to Q. That is incorrect. That's just the whole area, but it also doesn't encompass the shift in supply, so that can't be right. So I'm going to just go back on that. 0, P3, L, Q2. Again, that is definitely not correct, as that is actually the cost. This box represents the cost to the consumer of the subsidy. Not that there really is a particular large cost to them, but still. And okay, P3, P1. Okay, this is looking good. J, L. Okay, so actually this is the correct answer. This will represent the amount spent by the government on subsidy. Then this is the only correct answer, because if we look at D, D is P4, P2, K, and M. Well, that does not represent the amount spent on the subsidy. In fact, that represents the total amount that is received by the producer from the subsidy. So the amount spent by the government is represented by P3, P1, J, L, C. Okay, explain opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is always the value of the next best opportunity foregone, or the next best alternative foregone. So I'm going to start with that. Explaining that. Sorry, opportunity cost is the value of the next best alternative foregone. Okay, so government granting subsidies to energy suppliers to install loft insulation. Okay, so one opportunity cost might be government spending on education, or maybe like other infrastructure products. So just something else which could have a potential benefit. And I guess what we could say is, there's always going to be some kind of opportunity cost. And maybe the opportunity cost, rather than spending on education, is actually there's maybe a better alternative to help with energy efficiency. So we could say there is always an opportunity cost to government spending, as there may be better alternatives for promoting energy efficiency. And maybe I'll just add in something here, like spending on educational infrastructure projects, e.g. wind turbines. I don't know, maybe that will give us some green energy, and that can help with it. Or, maybe there's some other thing other than loft insulation. Okay, question 4. So the UK government used a range of indirect taxes to affect the market prices and quantities of many goods and services. In the diagram below, the government imposes a specific tax. Okay, this is why specific tax is why you can see that the line is the two supply curves are parallel to each other. If it was a ad valorem tax, then they would the gradient of the second supply curve would be constantly change. Well, it'd be going up like so. Okay, so this shifts the supply curve from S1 to S2. The government's tax revenue shown by the area. Okay, now in this case, what we are looking for is to illustrate basically the vertical difference between the two curves, and that can show us where the government tax revenue is for them. So if I'm looking for the vertical distance, I know it's H and K, and all I need to do is then scroll across to P3 and P1, and that box there should give me the tax revenue for the specific tax that is being put in place. So if I look at that, if I find the correct one, P3, so O, P1 is wrong because we don't care about O. P2, P1 is wrong because we don't care about P2. P3, P1, yep. HK, HK, yep, that is the answer. P3, P2, again, just to double check, is wrong. So those are wrong. Okay, so specific taxes are to reduce the consumption of demerit goods, goods that have negative externalities associated with them. And also in a way to internalize them by forcing the person who consumes that good to pay additional price for that. And that additional price is to account for the negative externality they create by consuming that good. Okay, so one reason the government imposes specific taxes to reduce the consumption of demerit goods. And I just put in brackets goods with a negative externality. Example of this is the sugar tax, which aims to reduce consumption of beverages with a high sugar content. Beverages with a high sugar content. Okay, this internalizes the negative externality. So that's the cost to a third party, like, I don't know, healthcare on the person who develops type 2 diabetes from consuming too many sugary drinks. Externality. This internalizes from the person over consuming sugary drinks. Done. Okay, HS2 is a high-speed rail network linking the north and south of England. HS2 will be 4 years late and cost double the department for transport's original estimate. Holy schmoly, that's a lot. Okay, so define the term government failure. So government failure is when government intervention in the economy causes a decline in economic welfare. Explain one likely microeconomic reason why the government is using taxpayers' money to fund HS2. Well, the reason why is because, like, if it was done privately, basically, there probably wouldn't be the money available for, or there wouldn't be the possibility of accruing the money to actually fund the project. So anyway, regardless, I guess because it's going to have positive externalities associated. You've got negative externalities like consuming sugary drinks and the cost of NHS of helping those people, but you've also got positive externalities like HS2 might connect people to jobs, which can then lead to better life satisfaction, or provide jobs for people even making it, which can then lead to ability to buy nicer food or more nutritious food. There are lots of potential benefits, or people stopping using the roads and using railways instead, which can reduce the amount of pollution. Reason could be due to positive externalities associated with HS2 by having use rail rather than the roads. Pollution, and HS2 may not have occurred if done by the private sector, just because there might not have been the money allocated to them in order to pursue the project. All right, the diagram below shows the demand for and supply of passenger rail services. The shift of the demand curve from D1 to D2 is most likely to result from the government decision to impose a tax on workplace parking for passenger rail services. So if you put a tax on parking, workplace parking, that discourages people to use their cars. So instead they might use a substitute good like passenger rail service. So this is looking pretty good to me. Government decision to increase subsidies for rail travel. That would cause supply to shift outwards. So that's definitely not correct. Okay, so plan expansion of the government's railway track building program. Reduction in the tax imposed on a litre of petrol. That caused demand for not rail services, but car travel to increase. So A seems like the most likely option in my opinion. I don't think it is the correct option. Okay, so I believe that we've done that in just under 25 minutes and gone through all the questions. There is the start of section B. Hopefully you found this useful. If you have any questions, just let me know and share it with your friends. Hopefully they find this useful. And yeah, I'll try and get a couple more videos sorted in the meantime. Thanks very much and see you soon. Cheers.